We good? We're good to go. Okay. Woo, we're getting right to it.
The Emmys, TV's biggest party.
Oh my God.
But we've got the stars early.
What about you guys hosting the Emmys? Get out there and don't bomb.
Yeah.
With Robin Roberts, we're celebrating legends
Carol Burnett, ladies and gentlemen. Carol Burnett.
and a night of firsts.
Making history. The first black woman to receive an Emmy nomination for directing for a drama series.
And for the first time ever, you are both Emmy nominees.
Yeah, for the first time ever.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Van Ryn house.
The behind-the-scenes stories you'll only find out here.
Oh, do tell.
Yeah, what it do, camera crew?
From Abbott
I have to open my big mouth.
T, you're good on T-bone?
Yes, chef.
to The Bear,
It looks chaotic. It is well thought out.
Shogun
It was like a miracle.
to Only Murders.
What was it like for you guys to watch Meryl sing that song?
I have to touch her.
Now, your backstage pass
I better not let me win.
for the laughs,
Nobody's gonna take us seriously.
the tears,
Oh my gosh!
and the surprises no one saw coming.
Where did you find that?
It's the 76th Emmys, a night of firsts.
Well, hello there. I'm Robin Roberts, and we hope everybody's going to be watching the Emmys this Sunday here on ABC. But right now, we have something nobody else has, and that is a sneak peek at some of your favorite shows and nominees this year, transporting us everywhere from feudal Japan to a Chicago kitchen, from a murder-prone New York City apartment building to Abbott Elementary, all showing a lot of heart, a lot of heat, and tons of talent, especially from these first-time nominees. This year is one for the records. From movie stars Ryan Gosling, Paul Rudd, and Naomi Watts, to music legends Lionel Richie and Usher. So many shining stars are surprisingly getting their first nominations and first wins at last weekend's Creative Arts Emmys.
Wow, my first Emmy.
We pulled the security tape from the gas and gold souls.
Fargo's 15 nominations include first-time nominee and fan favorite Lamorne Morris for Outstanding Supporting Actor.
And for the record, that's just reality.
Congratulations, Emmy nominee.
Thank you.
Lamorne.
Thank you. That's how people should start addressing.
Is that, that's how people are gonna like that ring?
It's crazy.
A comedy veteran, best known for his role on New Girl. But not everything is a joke to Lamorne.
Really? Oh my God.
This emotional viral TikTok of the moment he learned he was nominated.
Yes, baby, Daddy's frying.
What propelled you to want to share that with everyone?
I thought to myself, this might be something for my daughter to look at one day. I kept the video just for us. But then I just thought to myself, people need to see people with tears of joy. People need to cry.
You're known for your comedic chops, but to get the Emmy nom for a more serious role has to mean a lot.
When you get a nomination, there's a bit of a validation that says, shut up. You are right where you need to be. You are doing the things you need to be doing. A win would say something completely different, because then now it's speedboats and private jets. That's if I win, forget about it. I better not let me win.
So what are you looking forward to that night?
My mom's my date.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
so sweet.
my mom's my date. Zoe Kravitz is unavailable because apparently she's engaged to somebody, but my mom was the second option.
It's been an exciting year. Netflix and Warner Brothers Discovery all garnering more than 100 nominations each. And leading the pack, Disney. When you think about 183 nominations, what does it say about this era of television making?
I think it says that people have an enormous appetite for great stories. They want to disappear into them. They want to escape. They want to be entertained. And the journeys they go on are so incredible.
We journey 2,500 miles from the glitz of the red carpet to see the oasis that inspired the creative minds of this year's most nominated series.
We're here on our
on our porch on Maui. It's where we live and raise our kids.
This is good for us to pick.
It's where we raise our animals and our many, many animals.
And it's here where husband and wife Rachel Kondo and Justin Marks learned that Shogun had been nominated for a whopping 25 Emmys, including Outstanding Drama Series.
We woke up early and it was still dark outside, and I mean, my mouth was agape, and I just couldn't stop almost giggling because it felt very surreal.
It took Rachel and Justin 10 years to get Shogun from development onto the screen, and I think the audience feels that. They feel their investment. Given how much of it is in Japanese and subtitled, to ask a global audience to stick with it all the way through the 10 episodes, and that's exactly what they did.
We knew it was something that we believed in, and we set out early in this process to tell a story at a level of authenticity that we felt had not been seen in Hollywood production.
And 5 members of the cast are first-time nominees, including Hiroyuki Sanada, who is up for Outstanding Actor as well as Producer.
It's a lot for me. You know, first nomination, of course, and then it was my first leading role in Hollywood. So, yeah, it's crazy.
One guy there. Yes.
Luckily, as a producer, I could hire a Japanese crew who has experience for the samurai drama making. Because props, costume, wig, everything had to be correct. I had a great team, you know, dream team.
Celebrating her first Emmy nod for supporting actress in the Hulu miniseries Under the Bridge.
I was honestly pretty blown away when I heard that the nomination had come in.
Lily shares the category with her friend Kaylee Reese, who's nominated for True Detective, the first Indigenous actresses to be recognized.
I'm really happy that I'm not the only one who's sharing that in this category this year. It's so nice to be carrying the weight of that historic responsibility, I guess, with another sister.
Nominated alongside them is Baby Reindeer's Naba Mao, the first transgender person in that category.
You stopped me calling the minute she attacked me. You stopped everyone calling. To be the first simply means that, in a lot of ways, I'm the first to have the opportunity and the appropriate support that it takes to reach a milestone like this.
Tony charging up the court already with 15 points for the 76ers. And another one.
Right here, Sally.
Sally, up here, please.
And making history behind the camera is Sally Richardson Whitfield for her work on the HBO series Winning Time, The Rise of the Lakers Dynasty. The first Black woman to receive an Emmy nomination for directing for a drama series. What does that mean to you?
When I was told that it was the first Black woman, of course I was excited, but I was saddened too, because it was like it couldn't be. I think it means a lot because I feel like it should open the doors for many other women to get this honor.
Executive producer, director. That is rare in itself. But then, Black woman, executive producer, and director on a project. This is rarefied air.
I think that people are really surprised to see me as director and executive producer of a show like Winning Time. Because, you know, it's sports. It's sports.
Go out there.
I think that's been part of why I've challenged myself.
1, 2, 3, 7.
From the rise of the Lakers to the rise of New York society, Sally has another nomination to be excited about, HBO's The Gilded Age, for which she is one of the executive producers. The show, set in the 19th century, is nominated for 6 Emmys, including Outstanding Drama.
Oh, welcome to the Van Ryn house.
Are you kidding me? You have transported me to the 1880s, darling.
Isn't it gorgeous?
Wow.
It's just so perfect, and you would never think you were on a stage.
Who taught you to write like this?
The Institute for Colored Youth.
in Philadelphia.
But I know it well.
And as for making her own history,
I'm just excited because I think that people see me, and that's really all I want.
My love is a lighthouse.
Next, from Only Murders, we've got not only Meryl, but a lot of laughs.
I did feel the need to laugh, and I thought two of my favorite.
Say it, monkeys.
When we come back.
no way I could have all the fun. It's nice to share. So my ABC colleague, Chris Connolly, got to hang out with some of the stars. And do I mean stars?
And the Emmy goes to Meryl Streep, Angels in America.
And the winner is Meryl Streep.
Meryl Streep, the most admired and acclaimed actress of her generation, and yours.
There are some days when I myself think I'm overrated.
Meryl Streep has won Emmys for such dramas as 1975's Holocaust. The three-time Emmy-winning Streep is nominated yet again for Season 3 of the Steve Martin, Martin Short, Selena Gomez mystery-solving Hulu comedy, Only Murders in the Building.
Oh, I never miss a chance to put on my tux. Last time I wore this was 1987 Emmys.
Along with the three Only Murders leads, playing a part that Meryl says she asked for because she was sad.
Meryl, why did you want to be part of this ensemble with all the choices that present themselves to you?
The truth is that the world was getting to me. It was sort of, I was feeling overwhelmed by dark events. I did feel the need to laugh, and I thought two of my favorite
Say it, monkeys.
But I called you guys up and I said, is there ever any project that you would want to do or something? And they said, well, why don't you do our show?
Streep cast as the enigmatic Loretta, who performs in the Broadway musical which frames the Only Murders season, providing the chance for some Meryl magic to shine, as in this moment, when she sings the ballad written for her character, Look for the Light.
They played me this beautiful lullaby, and it made me cry. First time I heard it.
So darling, my darling, look for the light.
What was it like for you guys to watch Meryl sing that song for the first time?
I cried.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
That moment was one of the most magical movie moments I've ever had. It's just all genuine. It was astounding. I thought, this is a special moment.
What is it like to hear that?
That was really nice. Thank you. No, I mean it.
Which of the Pickwick triplets did it? Who of the crew would commit this crime?
Composers Benj Pasek and Justin Paul winning a Creative Arts Emmy for writing that patter song for Steve Martin's character, giving them an EGOT.
So quick as a whip, got a pick which Pickwick triplet did it.
I'm the face of the song, but they're really the creative people. And, you know, an EGOT is a fantastic thing. You know, I have an EGOTan.
What's that?
Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony nomination.
No, it doesn't count.
That doesn't count?
You are an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and it's appropriate. He is an ego.
Yeah, an ego, yeah. Mm-hmm.
My ego isn't so delicate that I need random validation from a Emmy award-winning actor.
Selena, you are also now the most nominated Latina producer in the history of the Emmys. How does that make you feel?
That truly makes me feel emotional, and I hope I'm making my dad proud, and to be recognized as a Latina who's, you know, in the industry. I'm proud to represent that.
Want to make a podcast with me?
It's also the first time Selena Gomez has been nominated for her performance, and she's not the show's only first-time female performer nominee, because guess who is in Guest Actress in a Comedy?
The killer is someone in this room.
And you are enjoying your first Emmy nomination.
Yeah.
When you ended your acceptance speech for the Oscars, I think you said, I pray to God I get to do this one more time.
Yeah.
You didn't add this year.
I know, isn't that so? It's like, okay, that amazing moment happened, and maybe, 3, 5, 10 years from now, I'll hopefully get another interesting project. 5 months? No, I didn't expect it to get nominated for something 5 months later. It's wild.
More wildness? One of Davine's co-nominees and guest actress is part of a wife and husband couple who've snagged their first simultaneous his and hers Emmy noms.
And congratulations to both of you on your nominations.
For It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia's 20 years, Caitlin Olsen and Rob McElhenney have been outrageously funny together.
I love that you have this amazing romance and you get to do things on this show like...
You look like one of those inflatable dancing things at the used car lot, the ones that flail around in the wind.
I don't. I look good. Well, to be fair to them, that kind of is how I dance.
Yeah, that's true. We pull a lot from real life. Not everything.
Real life finds these two on the set of Caitlin's new ABC show, High Potential. And now, Rob's Emmy nominated for his docuseries, Welcome to Wrexham on FX, about the underdog Welsh soccer club he co-owns with Ryan Reynolds.
I didn't want to make a football documentary. I didn't want to make a sports documentary. I wanted to make a show that was a love letter to the working class.
Now we gotta go into League 2. Yep.
Caitlin's nomination, one of a bundle earned by the Emmy juggernaut Hacks as the uncensorable daughter of Jean Smart's Deborah Vance.
This is my Cornell admissions essay all over again.
I wrote you a gorgeous essay.
I just think that Hacks is so special because it is very challenging to write a television show that is a comedy but is also really based in some grounded emotion. Newsflash, Mom! I'm stronger than you think, and I'm gonna do the roast my way, and I'm gonna crush it.
I think we got halfway through the episode and I paused it because I felt both admiration and awe and despair because I had nothing to do with it.
Rob had something to do with this, though, an unstructured reality program win for Welcome to Wrexham, his second at last weekend's Creative Arts Emmys, where in a crowded field, it was Jamie Lee Curtis winning Best Actress in a Comedy. Still, a nomination is forever, and there's no mistaking that Emmy euphoria.
Next, a living legend who didn't plan to act.
If there'd been a major in journalism, I wouldn't be...
You'd be sitting here.
Sitting here.
I know you'd be on this side.
Wow.
Coming up.
From Television City, it's the Carol Burnett Show.
Much like on her Carol Burnett show, whatever door the legend walks through, she is warmly welcome.
Carol Burnett, ladies and gentlemen. Carol Burnett. I know.
She's the beloved grande dame of physical comedy.
The gown is gorgeous.
Thank you. I saw it in the window and I just couldn't resist it.
Her iconic Carol Burnett show earned an incredible 25 Primetime Emmy Awards during its 11-year run. Carol Burnett.
Yes.
What a privilege! I know you hear this all the time. We used to watch your show all the time.
I always say, you were the one.
So many.
Oh,
but
thank you so much.
But it was just a wonderful time for her, and I can just hear the laughter. You were able to change the course of comedy for women. You really were a trailblazer in many ways. You talk about growing up in Hollywood. I mean, this was like your playground, wasn't it?
Block north of Hollywood Boulevard. I lived on Wilcox and Yucca Street, and we used to climb the Hollywood sign.
I hear the O was your favorite.
You did your homework.
Yes, but what was it about the O that was...
I don't know. There was some rickety scaffolding that was real old. Well, we got splinters on the way up and on the way down, but the O's were the easiest to climb up to. We'd hang over the letters and look all over Hollywood. It was just, we had a great time.
Carol is now having the time of her life, playing Norma Delacourt on the Apple TV Plus series, Palm Royale.
I remember the year Norma made her entrance, dressed as Botticelli's Venus in a clamshell of real pearls.
where her incredible facial expressions and years of physical comedy are front and center.
No, look at you two, staring at each other like a couple of lovebirds. What is exactly going on between you two anyway?
In this soapy series, her character spends most of the show coming out of a coma and unable to talk.
I don't know what rah-rah-rah-rah is. Rah-rah-rah.
Carol's nominated for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series. And at age 91, if Carol wins, she would set a record. If you should win on Sunday, you will be making history as the oldest woman to win the Emmy. You've been in this business 7 decades. Could you ever imagine that you'd be in this position?
No, not at all. I remember, oh gosh, the first Emmy that I got was 1962. That was Gary Moore.
Oh dear, how lovely. Carol Burnett.
A then 29-year-old Carol Burnett first rose to fame on the Gary Moore Variety Show.
I can't think of anything to say for my mouth. That's something.
I was stunned when, that was my first one. The first award I ever got was 1952 when I was at UCLA.
Outstanding newcomer? Was it something like that? Yes.
Yeah, the most outstanding newcomer.
This is what I love about you. Emmys, Golden Globe, Medal of Freedom, Tony, Grammy, and then you go back to that award.
That's my favorite one.
What was it about that?
Well, just because I never expected it. I never expected to be a performer at all. What happened was I was editor of my junior high school paper and Hollywood High paper, and I thought I would go into journalism. So when I got a chance to go to UCLA, I wanted to major in journalism, but there was no major. So I got the catalog, and I could take the playwriting course because I wanted to write. And then some kids came up, they had written some one-acts and stuff, and they said, would you be in a one-act? And so I did, yeah, okay. And all of a sudden, it opened up everything. And then one friend said, can you carry a tune? And I said, yeah, I think so. And I did that. And then I thought, I want to be in musical comedy. But it was all, Robin, an accident. If there'd been a major in journalism, I wouldn't be.
You'd be sitting here.
Sitting here. I know.
You'd be on the side.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that'd be.
No, is there anybody that you are looking forward to seeing?
Everybody. I'm a stargazer.
Still?
Oh, still. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Carol has said that in all her years, there is still one person she'd love to work with and has never had the chance. You have worked with so many, and I know that you said that the one person that you still would like to work with is Meryl Streep.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we happen to have Meryl Streep in this special as well, and she does have a message for you, Carol Burnett, and here it is.
You're nominated in the same category as Carol Burnett.
And she has been asked if there was anyone she could work with whom she's never worked with yet, it would be you.
Really? Oh my God, well, I'm available currently. Carol, oh no.
What's special about her that, in your mind?
Well, it is that spirit, that where she makes things funny, but it's not cruel. She finds compassion and makes fun of herself, but not, it's just good-hearted.
I'm gonna cry. Oh. Oh, I'm gonna die happy. That is so sweet. I treasure that. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And I know people have said this to you. You're our friend. You are a friend. And I know people. Yeah. What do you want to say to folks who feel like they know you, they feel like they've grown up with you?
I say thank you. I say thank you. I'm grateful. Yeah.
I'm so glad we had this time together.
Oh, me too.
So glad we had this time together.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, Carol.
Good night.
Next, we're taking you back to school. Abbott Elementary, that is.
And I like to fight.
Oh. So what made creator Quinta Brunson react like this?
Oh, wow!
When we return.
Wow.
Yeah, what it do, camera crew?
Season after season, you can't help but laugh.
Welcome back. It's career day today, unfortunately.
And don't dare look away. The hit mockumentary ABC sitcom Abbott Elementary, garnering 9 Emmy nominations for season 3, the most the comedy has ever received. All led by the Quinta Brunson. Showrunner, lead actress, producing. You wear so many different hats. How do you do it?
One hat at a time and being really good at switching them on and off.
You excited about Emmy night?
I am, yeah. I'm gonna have fun. Getting to see people whose work you admire and getting to actually tell them, your show brightened up my day, or your show made me cry. That kind of stuff is exciting to me.
Last season, Quinta taking home the Emmy for Best Actress in a Comedy Series. She's up again for her starring role as Janine. Going back to season 1, and Janine is, you know, this second grade teacher who's just trying really hard.
Yep.
And to see her progression.
Yes.
And the audience has bought into her transformation.
They sure did, yeah. I love that they're on the ride with us.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to keep doing that.
The comedy chronicles inner city Philadelphia educators doing the best they can with what little they have.
Now, let's see those cheetahs. I brought a fake sloth.
Really? That's what you brought?
And romance that heats up
I fixed your light.
in the season 3 finale. Quinta. It's here in LA where Quinta got her start in stand-up, like at Laugh Factory.
I'm like, oh my God, you're so short. Are you okay? Did you get the handicap thing for your car?
The internet sensation forging her path to create Abbott. The show, a playground for guest stars.
Very Janine in here.
Even Best Actress nominee Ayo Edebiri, previously playing Janine's sister. Both in comedy, these women in comedy, and to be on the rise as you both are. You share that.
She's more than a friend. I call her my aunt / niece / cousin. But it's invaluable to have someone who's so close to you and going through the same things you are. And I'm proud of her.
Ayo, known for her award-winning role in FX's The Bear.
The Bear!
The reigning champ will duke it out with Abbott, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and others for outstanding comedy series.
I've watched every episode of Abbott. I watched Hacks. The 3rd season was actually probably my favorite of the 3.
Lionel Boyce, alongside castmate Liza Colon-Zayas,
Hi, baby.
What's up, T? How you doing?
are both first-time nominees for their supporting performances in The Bear. Making history for its record 23 Emmy nominations for season 2, the most ever earned by a comedy series. People talk about The Bear. What is it like to be a part of a show like that?
Before this, I would always think about, like, I wonder what it's like to be a part of something that's a hit. And then it happens, and you're just, like, watching it unfold in real time, and you're just like, oh, okay, this is something that means something.
It's the story of a restaurant in need of a revamp after a family tragedy.
It's gonna take 6 months to open.
6 months?
That's being
What, confident?
cocky, crazy.
The stakes are high, and every second counts.
Recipe. Thank you, chef.
Lionel plays Marcus, the even-keeled aspiring pastry chef, traveling to Copenhagen to train with Chef Luca. Guest actor Will Poulter is also nominated for the episode.
I love Will. He's very into food. He brought some cookies he made, and I'm not like a huge cookie person, but I was like, these are amazing.
How could you not be, after all those pastries that
I
you
love
make on the
cake.
show?
I love cakes more.
Okay.
I mean, I don't make that lot. To be fair, you don't see me making cookies in the show.
That's true. Donuts I've seen,
Yeah.
cakes you've seen.
Which I love both.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Liza's character, Tina, sharpening her craft at culinary school.
Excellent cut, chef.
Thank you, chef.
Your castmate, Liza, her first time as a nominee. So how do you feel about that?
I'm over the moon for that. She's just been working for so long and incredibly talented. I felt more happy for her being nominated than myself.
A stage and screen veteran who worked in the industry for nearly 3 decades before landing her breakout role.
I get a little nervous that I just am Tina. That being tiny and Latina, I mean, I come from strong women.
Liza's up against a stacked category for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series.
It's people I really, truly, truly look up to. I'm about the work and about the respect. But to have that validation, it feels amazing.
Finding heart and humor through their hometowns, both The Bear and Abbott Elementary bring their beloved cities to life. Chicago is synonymous with The Bear.
That's a cool thing that this show does. It's specific in a way where they're shooting at places with intentionality. So it feels alive in this way where you're like, I want to go there, I want to see it.
Abbott Elementary.
Yes.
It has to be Philly.
Yes, I'm pumped to continue our tradition of making Philly known to the rest of the world.
And you're a West Philly girl,
Yes.
starting in dance. A mentor of yours has a special message for you.
Oh, wow!
Ma'am, it's Miss Holly. How
Wow.
you doing, baby? Congratulations on all of your success and all of your Emmy nominations for this year.
Oh, Miss Holly.
I am so proud of you.
Oh, please.
Congratulations from L&L Dance Productions in West Philly. We love you so much.
So, yeah.
Why does that bring tears to your eyes?
That's just a small dance school in West Philly. That was where I learned to be on stage. You know, I was at that dance school every Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday, so that was home away from home. Girls who are from where I'm from, those kind of spaces are special because they keep you out of trouble and give you an environment to believe in yourself.
You are Hollywood royalty right now. And you can be brought to tears thinking of the gratitude that you have.
That's very sweet.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Coming up. From father and son to first-time Emmy co-hosts.
The challenge is not humiliating yourself on national television in front of millions and millions of people.
That's one.
Next.
I mean, personally, for me, comedy's all about, if I'm going to go down, I want to take somebody with me. Luckily, I've got my son here.
Yeah. That's good fatherly advice.
Honed by their real-life roles as father and son. This year's Emmy hosts Dan Levy and Eugene Levy, set to showcase their Emmy-winning comic chemistry, famously featured on their sitcom Schitt's Creek. Congratulations to the two of you, the first father and son duo ever to host the Emmys. What does that mean to you?
Means we're the first. I think that's what it means.
The challenge is not humiliating yourself on national television in front of millions and millions of people.
That's one.
How would you describe what it is that the two of you do when you're
Bickering.
together? Bickering?
It's kind of a bicker, kind of back and forth. It's a general lack of respect.
What are you wearing? What is that, a nightgown?
It's a nightshirt, David.
You might want to rethink the nightgown first. There's a whole Ebenezer Scrooge thing happening.
That's what I was thinking of.
You know what? I'll do it myself.
My best to Bob Cratchit.
We're fortunate enough to have chemistry that works on an award show.
It's also the kind of chemistry that was used on Schitt's Creek. I mean, it came from a very, very real place.
Oh, wow, that's deep. You're in there. Okay.
At the 2020 Emmys, the TV Academy and a COVID-scarred country grateful to be up the creek, the Canadian series sweeping the comedy categories. Eugene Levy winning 2 Emmys and Dan Levy winning 4, acting, writing, directing, and producing. The show's warm, witty vibe, a touchstone for this Emmy gig.
You know, I think our approach through this is what we approach everything we do, which is with a kind of, heart and kindness while at the same time not losing the edge of what people come to expect from a host. So it's riding that balance. We want everyone to feel welcome, but we also need to make some
You gotta be funny.
jokes. I also think as Canadians, we can't take ourselves, it's impossible to take yourself seriously. and try to not bomb.
Yeah, that's
This is
the
gonna be some of us
that's the
bombing.
Canadian way. Yes, get out there and don't bomb.
Yeah.
They're only the second duo to host the Emmys in the 21st century.
Whoa!
Michael Che and Colin Jost being the other pair. But back in the day,
I Love Lucy.
Lucy and Desi did it together in black and white in the 1950s, taking home Emmys of their own at the same time.
Thanks very, very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Future 2020 host Hugh Downs partnered with late-night talk show host Joey Bishop in 1967. That's the year the Monkees won Comedy Series. And in 1982, the year Marlo Thomas and John Forsythe hosted, Eugene Levy won his first of 2 80s Emmys for the great sketch show SCTV, where he wrote and performed alongside Creek's Catherine O'Hara, and sang, too, for a production number that helped to open an award show send-up.
Now, ain't that grand?
If you've never seen it,
Well,
and I'm sure you haven't, you should watch it just to see what your dad was doing, like way before you were born.
Mm-hmm.
Dan's debut on MTV Canada in 2006, and Eugene's role in a 1970 college play, getting each of their pictures in the local paper when they were each just 23 or so.
Wow. And look at the way you look, and look at the way I look, and you wonder why I wasn't getting work.
He's getting plenty of work now. He's in season 4 of Only Murders in the Building as an actor prepping to play Steve Martin's character in a film.
Well, at our age, no one's ever really totally fine, are we? You know what everyone's got now? Sepsis.
Oh my God, there's my old friend Bill Fortman.
What would you give as advice in terms of hosting the Emmys this year?
I don't think I could give him advice because he has his own comic persona. It's like if we're all three of us in a room and he's talking fast and I'm talking fast and then Eugene talks, he slows it right down.
That's what you want.
Because one thing about an award show, you always wish it was a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
So I think it's going to work out well.
I think he and Daniel are going to be great.
The Only Murders cast set to present on the show, with one of its latest season's featured actors given her own chance to shine.
We're going to have this great coaches moment, led by Jane Lynch, who was an amazing coach on Glee. She defined what a coach should be. She is amazing. And we've got this great moment built around her, and it's tied to an amazing surprise.
Emotion of the night is front and foremost in my mind. That's a really joyous thing.
We just want it to be great. We want it to be smart. We want it to mean something. We want it to be fun. And
We really hope that it's just a fun vibe, and it's a very celebratory night.
Both of these hosts appreciate the impact of an Emmy or two, with Dan Levy recalling growing up with his father's statues in their home.
growing up, we just had these kind of decaying Emmy Awards sitting on a shelf. At one point, someone had taken
I did.
Scotch tape
Yeah.
and taped the little placard that came off.
They weren't built that well back then. I mean,
So when I got mine, I just thought, don't do that. Take better care of them.
It's not like I picked it up every day and was waving it around and spinning it, but we loved having them.
They were fun.
On our shelves, and then we got to add to them later on.
It's true.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you.
It's really been a pleasure.
I'm not
Likewise.
finished yet.
I just want to say hello, sweetheart.
When we return, one final surprise. Passing the comedy torch. Next.
Before we say goodnight, we brought together two trailblazers, a few years apart maybe, but united in making us laugh, making us think, and paving the way. Finally, we have one last bit of Emmy magic. Oh my goodness! Before the big night.
Hi, Carol.
We arranged a surprise drop-in from the Carol Burnett.
I want to say hello, sweetheart.
Come on in, please.
Carol,
Hi,
thank you.
sweetheart. Okay, and the Emmy goes to Quinta Brunson, Abbott Elementary.
At the 75th Primetime Emmy Awards, Quinta received her very first acting Emmy from the comedy TV legend herself.
Wow. Thank you so much. I don't even know why I'm so emotional. I think like the Carol Burnett of it all. I was really just blown away, but I never got to tell you just really how much you mean to me and growing up watching you.
Thank you,
I was
sweetheart.
really crying from a true place of comedy, of seeing you and like knowing that I could do it. And,
Look at her.
I mean it.
So adorable.
I was a mess.
Bless you.
What does it mean to you to know that you have blazed this trail for?
That
Feel this
is
way
so
about
sweet.
you?
No. You know what I say? Because sometimes people say that if I'd never been born, they'd be doing what they're doing. Absolutely.
Sounds corny, but seemed like the Carol Burnett show that I never questioned whether or not I could do something like that because it was being done.
Well, in a way,
Yeah.
I felt that way about Lucy.
Yes. And now you're
Somebody's going to feel that way about you.
Yeah, I hope so. That's nice.
Thank you for stopping by. I know that you wanted to see her and she wanted to see you.
I did. This was more.
Bless you.
See you at the Emmys.
You bet.
That was special. I adore those two women. Now be sure to watch the nominated series we discussed, some available on Hulu right now. And this Sunday night, I'll be hosting the Red Carpet pre-show starting at 7 p.m. Eastern, along with GMA's Will Reeve. We will get you ready for the 76th Emmys. I know Will be looking sharp, so I got to start figuring out what to wear myself. I'm Robin Roberts saying goodnight.
A cherished family at the center of a small town.
They laughed and they joked around and they were happy together. They were loved and well respected in our community.
Is gunned down in cold blood.
I'll never forget walking in the house that morning and seeing what I saw. Who could have done this? Was it somebody that they knew? Maybe this person had sought some type of revenge.
Detectives pursue a trail of suspects.
He was actually set to gain from the death.
And then his behavior was alarming.
During the polygraph, he started tearing the stuff off. I know they had had issues within their relationship.
They said, well, I can take care of that problem for the right sum of money.
But the killer remains elusive.
What are we missing? What are we not doing?
Until a shocking confession reveals the true culprit.
And she agreed to wear a recording device and elicit some more information. I mean, it was just incredible. It was disturbing.
The killer was about the most unexpected thing. It was such a shock.
Columbia, Kentucky is a small but tight-knit rural community.
Everyone knows everyone else. Your neighbors feel like family. People watch out for one another.
Not uncommon. You'd be walking downtown, you'll stop, run into friends or family. Very friendly atmosphere.
One of the most beloved families in Columbia are the Wellnitzes. They own a veterinary clinic just steps away from their home.
I just remember that environment at the clinic was a place that I, as a kid, wanted to spend every spare moment that I had, just because it was a great place to be. Joe and Beth, their kids, Dennis and Meg, they were kind, they were loving, and they were fun to be around.
On February 26, 1993, the town forever changes after two of Joe and Beth's employees make a grim discovery just after 8 a.m. at the Wellnitz home.
Two employees had shown up for work, but Joe and Beth were not at the clinic. The clinic was adjacent to the residence. So the gentleman walked over to the house, went in the back door, and discovered Joe's body in the downstairs area of the home. The lady that had also shown up for work that morning, she then went to the house, discovered two bodies upstairs.
Joe and Beth and their son, Dennis, they've been shot. Then she ran out and called the police.
Investigators rushed to the scene.
I'll never forget walking in the house that morning and seeing what I saw. It was just total shock. I knew what kind of people they were. I knew how kind they were and how compassionate they were with their work that they did. I couldn't believe it. When we entered the house, there was Joe laying there on the floor. He was on his stomach. His hand was underneath his chest.
He had a pair of gray sweatpants on and a white t-shirt. It looked like he came out of a bathroom and had been shot and fell face first. Blood that had pooled around the body.
My initial reaction was shock. But then I realized shortly thereafter that I had a job to do, and my job was to take care of the scene, to see if we could find out who did this horrible thing. Around the scene where Joe was found, there was multiple shell casings, and you could see bullet holes in the walls. We went from there to the upstairs, and we found Dennis's body laying there in his bedroom. He had no shirt on. You could see bullet holes in his back. There was also shell casings laying around. Looked like he was crawling on the floor and was executed by the killer at that point. Entering into the back bedroom that belonged to Joe and Beth, you could see multiple shell casings back there.
Beth was found on the side of the bed nearest to the doorway. She appeared to have been standing when she was shot, with multiple gunshot wounds to her head and upper torso. The Wellnesses were all found either in or near a bed or in clothes that suggested they had been sleeping. So it was apparent that it had happened during the night at some point or early morning hours.
After examining the bodies, police scour the rest of the house for clues, but there's no sign of a murder weapon.
There were no broken windows, there was no furniture turned over, the house had not been ransacked. It was significant that there was no forced entry, that at least gave the impression that it was somebody with some degree of familiarity with the home and with the Wellness family. It appeared this family had been targeted.
Who could have done this? You know, who is the person that would have done such a horrible crime in this community that is usually so gentle? Was it somebody that they knew? Maybe this person had sought some type of revenge. Once we saw that these three people had been murdered, we immediately wanted to know, where is Meg Wellness at, so we can find her to make sure she's safe, first of all, make sure she's not a victim. We were able to locate her. She was at school in Lexington and was unharmed.
Officers are tasked with breaking the news to Joe and Beth's daughter.
Meg was told that her mom and dad and brother were murdered, were dead. I really felt sorry for her. I thought, now how is she going to go on? You know, how did she recover from this?
We got a phone call just a little while after I got up, and they said, Beth and Joe have been killed. And at that moment, we didn't know Dennis also had been killed. And I just stayed in my room that day and just cried. Just couldn't believe that they were gone. They were like a second set of parents for me.
One of my family members had called. They gave me the horrible news that Joe and Beth and Dennis had all been murdered. And that's a day you don't forget.
Joe Wellnitz was born in 1942 and grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. From a young age, he always loved animals and turned that passion into a career.
Not many rural communities anywhere would have been able to boast of having a veterinarian with the background that Joe had. Joe was one of the most caring, kindest gentlemen that you will ever meet.
In his 30s, Joe met Beth Preston, a woman 10 years his junior. Both divorced, they married in 1979, and Joe adopted her 2 kids, Dennis and Meg. 2 years later, they moved their family and Joe's clinic from Lexington to Columbia.
Meg would come in and out of the clinic. Dennis would mostly, I would just see him outside. He was only 20 years old.
Dennis was popular in school. He had worked in town. He had attended college. He was just a well-liked young man.
Beth was the one I was closest to. She was the face of the clinic. She was the person everyone saw when they walked in the door. Always had a smile on her face. The relationship between Joe and Beth was perfect to me. They laughed and they joked around and they were happy together. They were a very happy family.
But one horrific night has changed everything. Who could have wanted to kill the Wellnitzes, and why?
The two employees that discovered the bodies were certainly interviewed that morning. There was really no motive. And the way the two of them arrived that morning, there was really no opportunity for either of them to commit the murders. They were dismissed as suspects.
In Lexington, police asked Meg to help them piece together her family's last movements. She says she visited them for dinner 2 days ago, but had returned that night as she had school.
Meg told the police that she'd been in Lexington the night before the bodies were found, and that she'd been playing cards with some friends, her boyfriend, as well as another couple, Bill Meese, and then Bill Meese's wife.
When asked if Meg was aware of any problems at home, she gives police their first lead.
There was a couple that were tenants of Joe and Bess they may have had issues with, and their names Brenda and Dave Cowell.
The Cowells had been living in a cabin on the Wellnitz property.
They were living there rent-free, exchanged for doing some work for Joe and Beth. There was some discrepancy there about whether they were doing the work sufficiently or not. Joe and Beth felt like they weren't, so they gave them a bill for $1,800 for the rent. And ultimately, they never paid it. They filed bankruptcy.
Were the Cowells angry enough to want the Wellnitzes dead? Was this murder payback?
They were persons of interest, people that we needed to talk to. We needed to prove or disprove whether they were involved in it or not.
Coming up, fear races through the community.
We thought if this could happen to the Wellnitzes, it could happen to any of us. Who would be next? People were scared. Everybody wanted to know who did it, why they did it, and how they did it.
Everybody was just guessing, gossiping.
And police unearthed family secrets, indicating a potential motive.
It was a surprise to me to learn that there was another child involved. There was actually a will giving him so much money out of the estate.
Before a shocking confession,
I walked through the house, I engaged in firearm, I emptied the magazine of weapons.
Reveals a killer no one could have imagined.
It was a bombshell.
Police investigating the homicide of Joe, Beth, and Dennis Wellnitz have their first suspects. Tenants who had recently clashed with the family over money.
When we learned about the bankruptcy, about them living on the property, this discrepancy about the work they were doing, whether it was sufficient or not, especially when it came to the money, and then this bill for $1,800, we thought, well, this could be a motive for them wanting to do something. We knew that we had to talk to them. We had to see if they were involved.
Police learned the Cowells no longer live on the Wellnitz property.
Maybe they left there disgruntled. We went on that theory. Maybe they had went to the Wellnitz house that morning and then got into it with them, and then that's when all this escalated from there.
While detectives tracked down the Cowells, officers canvassed the area for witnesses.
We did a neighborhood canvass to talk to people to see if anybody in that area had heard anything, seen anything, or had any other information that they could provide. We were not able to identify anybody that did hear anything that went on that night during the shooting or anything.
4 days after the murder, detectives locate the Cowells and bring them in for separate interviews. Brenda claims she didn't hold any grudge against the Wellnitzes.
She told us that even though they had not paid the money that Joe and Beth felt like they owed, they had worked out the discrepancy and everything had moved on from that.
Police asked Brenda where she was the night of the murder.
They ended up moving off the farm. She said she was not there. She was at home when it happened.
When detectives speak with Brenda's husband, Dave, he's unable to confirm her alibi because of his own.
Dave was working in Louisville, Kentucky, which is almost in Indiana, probably 100 miles from where this happened at. He adamantly denied any involvement in this. He didn't want it to do harm to them.
Investigators speak to friends of the Wellnitzes to confirm the dispute with the Cowles had been resolved.
We were talking to friends in that area. We were able to determine that that situation where those hard feelings were had been resolved a long time prior to this happening. They were ruled out as far as having anything to do with this murder.
With no arrests made, fear begins to grip the town.
We thought if this could happen to the Wellnitzes, it could happen to any of us. It could happen to anyone. They were loved and well respected in our community, and so if they could be killed, who would be next? People were scared. Everybody wanted to know who did it, why they did it, and how they did it.
Word travels fast. Everybody was expressing their opinion as to what may or may not have contributed to this. But everybody was just guessing, gossiping.
It's got the whole community in an uproar about what happened. We had to get some answers pretty quickly, make sure that it wasn't some random killing and that other people may be coming next. When we started thinking about who could have done this, we started thinking about the veterinarian business. People get very sensitive about their pets, so we thought, well, maybe somebody had gotten disgruntled over that. We learned from the employees there that there was an issue between Jerry Yarberry and the Wellnesses where he had brought in his dog to have treatment done to its eye, and the dog ultimately was blind. So we thought, well, maybe this might be a motive for somebody to do harm to them. Some of the key questions that we wanted to know from Jerry was, how did he feel now toward the Wellnesses, and how did he feel toward what had happened between them?
Police bring Jerry into the station for questioning.
He told us that he was very upset about his pet. He refused to pay the bill that was owed to the Wellnesses. They ended up having to file a lawsuit against him in order to recoup the funds.
While Jerry admits he was angry with Joe, he says he isn't a killer.
He adamantly denied doing anything to the Wellnesses as far as going to that extreme. When we talked to Jerry, we learned that he was home watching TV with his wife and kids, and we were able to confirm that that's where he was at, and therefore we were able to eliminate him as a suspect in this case.
There's frustration on the part of the police because they want to see a crime solved. They want to see a murderer, in this case, held accountable. They want to see that person punished. And then there's frustration because we don't know if justice is ever going to be served.
As the case threatens to stall, a friend of the Wellnitz family contacts police with pertinent information.
I said, I'm a real estate broker, and they were getting the property ready to sell. There was an indenture, kind of a rectangle, in the floor of that master bedroom closet. I knew for a fact Joe and them kept a floor safe upstairs in their bedroom in the closet. I'm assuming, but that's where he kept all these important papers, his deed, anything that was of significance.
Gives you the opinion that the safe was part of the plan all along, that the killer knew where that safe was at. It was not setting out in the open where you would commit these 3 murders and then say, oh, okay, there's a safe, I'm gonna take that with me. It was hidden back in a closet.
It certainly caused the officers to focus their attention on who would want that safe, who would know the safe was there, and who would stand to have some benefit from removing the safe, especially in light of the fact that nothing else was taken, nothing else was disturbed.
If we could locate that safe, and very easily, that's going to put us on the trail of whoever.
Getting the first triple homicide in Columbia, Kentucky, are searching for an object stolen from the scene they hope will lead them to the killer.
The missing fire safe was certainly a critical piece of evidence that the officers were investigating. They tried to determine more specifically what the contents of the safe were, what was in there, what was going to perhaps turn up that might then be a clue
In talking to the family, we were able to learn that there was possibly could be insurance papers in that safe, maybe even up to around $1,000.
In this case, the only motive was to either cause the death of the Wellens family or to take the safe out.
As detectives put out an APB for the safe, the autopsy results come in.
One of the crucial things that we need to know is the time of death.
As far as the time frame of the death, the internal examination of the bodies was consistent that they had been killed within a few hours prior to the bodies being discovered.
It's estimated Joe, Beth, and Dennis were murdered around 4 a.m.
The medical examiner was able to determine that each victim died as a result of multiple gunshot wounds.
None of the victims had defense marks on their bodies, meaning they had likely been taken by surprise.
Additional projectiles were recovered from the bodies during the autopsy. The firearms examiner did determine that all of the shots were fired from a 9mm handgun. It did seem likely that they were all fired by the same person, given the fact that they were all fired from the same gun.
Obviously, from there, we're going to start doing multiple interviews to try to eliminate or show who has killed these three people, who could have that much of a grudge against them. During our investigation, we were able to learn that Joe had another son by the name of Eric. From my previous personal experience with Joe and Beth, I didn't know about Eric until after the murder. Joe had adopted him much the way that he did with Meg and Dennis, and then that marriage broke apart. It was a surprise to me to learn that there was another child involved that Joe had adopted at a young age. We started receiving information, documentation showing that Eric was actually still set to gain from the death of Joe. There was actually a will giving him so much money out of the estate to the tune of $250,000. Eric was somebody that we needed to talk to because that much money obviously would be a motive for somebody to do something like this.
Police tracked the 19-year-old down at his home in Lexington.
When Eric was interviewed, he was shocked that it occurred. They had issues within their relationship, him and Joe. It was a very distant relationship and then non-existent after a while. Eric also indicated that he felt like he was replaced by Dennis. They had completely become estranged after so long and had stopped any contact with each other. One of the things that we learned was that Eric did resent Joe. Part of that resentment was because of this estrangement.
Had Eric settled a score and inherited a fortune by killing the family? When police question him about the will, they are taken aback by his response.
When he learned that he was a beneficiary to this will, he was actually surprised that he was included in it, because they've been estranged for that many years.
But detectives can't just take Eric at his word.
The motive is there, the possibility, so we needed to know whether he had any type of alibi that we could substantiate to make sure that he wasn't in Columbia that morning. We learned during our interview with Eric Wellness that he had worked that night, and then once he got off work, he went to a friend's house and slept at that friend's house.
Eric says he was in Lexington the entire night, 2 hours away from Columbia.
So we were able to talk to that friend and determine that he did not have the opportunity to commit this crime. We felt pretty certain that he was not a suspect at this point. We eliminated him and moved on.
I was shocked, and it was an odd situation being questioned by the police officers. The fact that I was named in the will, if that was something that I had known, then that for sure gives me a motive. But there's no way in the world I could have ever done anything like that. Yes, I was angry as a child, having your dad disappearing out of your life, kind of in a snap of a finger. It was hard, and I was angry, but not that kind of anger where I wished anything bad.
Detectives learn that Meg, the only other surviving member of the family, is also named in the will. Could she have anything to do with the murder?
I really felt bad for Meg at that time because I knew Meg, but we had to get some answers. When we approached her about the will, she didn't know about it. She also wanted answers, you know. She loved them, Joe and Beth and Dennis.
She was so bright and intelligent and loving.
Police ask Meg about her relationship with her parents. She says it was good, but she raises one concern.
Officers did learn that Beth and Meg had had some disagreements over some of the people that she was now spending a lot of time with.
One person in particular, Meg's boyfriend, Randy Appleton.
Beth and Joe didn't want him around, so we needed to talk to Randy. Randy became a viable person of interest.
After 3 members of the Wellnitz family are gunned down in their own home, police now have a new suspect, the boyfriend of surviving daughter Meg, 20-year-old Randy Appleton.
Joe didn't go into any details, but he had a concern, I think, of the direction that Meg had taken as far as who she was associating with.
That could be a motive for Randy Appleton.
Detectives asked Randy where he was the night of the murder.
He was leery about talking to us.
Randy tells police he was playing cards with Meg and her friends until 2 a.m. the night of the murder. Then he mentions something that grabs detectives' attention.
We learned that he was interested in firearms. We had learned that he had frequented a firing range.
If the murder weapon had been used at the same firing range where he in fact acknowledged having been practicing with a 9mm, would be a very critical part of the investigation if those shell casings collected from the range matched the murder weapon that was believed to have been used to kill the Wellnitz family.
We're starting to see red flags at this point. Randy was one that liked guns. He did like to go to that firing range and did use a weapon there. We actually ended up going to the firing range and collecting several spent shell casings. All of them were submitted to the crime lab. Our hope was that we could match those rounds through the laboratory to some of the 9mm shell casings that we had located.
2 weeks later, police received the results on the shell casings.
They were not able to find any casings that matched as having been fired from the murder weapon that was used to kill the Wellnitz family.
It was very disappointing that we were unable to tie any of those shell casings to Randy Appleton.
It suggested either that they used a different weapon at the firing range than was used to murder the family, or that it could have been somebody else.
Despite the setback, Randy's love of guns and familiarity with the Wellnitz home means he is still a suspect. Police look to confirm his alibi with those he and Meg claim to have been with the night of the murder, Bill and Regina Meese.
We had to talk to them to see if that was what they were doing, playing cards during the early morning hours, because that was Randy's alibi. Bill was cooperative, where Bill had agreed to talk to us about certain things.
Bill corroborates Randy's alibi.
They were all 4 together playing cards till the early morning hours. He agreed to take a lie detector test. During the process of the polygraph examiner asked him if he knew anything about what happened, if he had any involvement about what happened.
And then his behavior was something that was alarming. It was something that caused some concern with the officers.
He started tearing the stuff off that you put on during a polygraph and just shut it down right then. And then the polygraph was over at that point. So he did not complete the polygraph. He was just very mad. Definitely raised red flags with us that he knows more than he's telling us, and that he's afraid of that polygraph because that polygraph might tell us more than he wants us to know.
Despite his behavior, police have nothing concrete on Bill and are forced to let him go.
We tried to talk to Regina, but Bill did not want us to interview her. He would get very controlling with her. It's over at this point. We were still running down leads. Obviously, you always get leads that you're going to follow. But one of the things that I thought early on was, if we ever get to a point where Regina and Bill are not talking, we need to go back and reapproach her.
Lacking any new developments, months turn into years, leaving detectives and the Wellnitz's loved ones frustrated.
What are we missing? What are we not doing? They're friends of mine, and this was one of those cases that you want to solve before your career is over. It was just like you were at a dead end, and we couldn't figure that out, you know.
When the case went cold, it was very disheartening just knowing that someone had committed this terrible crime and that they may possibly never have to pay for that. I just remember feeling so sad. Beth and Joe were just such a light in our community.
You don't have any answers when it happened. Had no idea of who could have done it or why they would have done it. There was so little information coming out, it just kind of fell to the wayside. It's just sad.
The case remains cold for nearly a decade. But in 2002, detectives decide to take a fresh look at the triple homicide.
This case is still on my mind. I had never forgot it. And I said, okay, what's the condition or what's the status of Bill and Regina? And I learned at that point that they were separated. That was the thing that we were waiting on before, is when this separation occurred, to go see what Regina had to say outside of the control of Bill Meese.
Police track Regina down, and what she has to tell them is shocking.
When we met with Regina in Lexington, she told us that she had proof of who killed the Wellnitzes.
Years after the murder of Joe and Beth Wellnitz and their son Dennis, police finally have a break in the case. One of their surviving daughter Meg's best friends, Regina Meese, says she knows who the killer is and has proof.
When we approached her, she immediately said, I've got this piece of evidence. She essentially wanted some assurance that she wouldn't be charged with tampering with evidence. And I assured her that if she in fact turned it over to law enforcement, I didn't think it would even constitute a crime. Now, at that time, we didn't know if she had photographs that perhaps were taken during the commission of the crime. We didn't know if she may have had the firearm that was used in the commission of the crime, or what piece of evidence that she had. But she shared with us that she had in fact retained possession of the fire safe that had been removed from the back closet in the bedroom upstairs of Beth and Joe's home.
When police ask Regina how she got the safe, she says the person who gave it to her is the one who shot the Wellnitzes.
Regina's the one started the ball rolling. Everything started to fall in place. Regina told us that Bill Meese was the one responsible for the death of Dennis and the death of Joe and Beth Wellnitz. It was very shocking, very shocking.
She had been interviewed by the police before, but had been told by her then husband, now ex-husband, not to talk to the police, not to tell them anything. And it certainly appeared, at least, to be a burden lifted that she was able to share this information.
It was a huge deal when we heard what she had to say. That was the part that we needed to happen, and that from there on, it steamrolled from there.
Regina takes police to her home to see the fire safe.
It was the same type and everything that we were missing from the house that night. It was the same measurements, that same dimensions that we had measured when we were in the Wellnitz house and discovered that the safe was missing.
When we later compared the bottom impressions on that fire safe to the imprints taken from the closet, it was a perfect match, and in fact it was the fire safe that was stolen from the Wellnitz home.
Nothing of significant value is found in the safe, but Regina delivers another explosive revelation to police. She tells them that Bill is planning to kill again.
Interviewing Bill Meese's ex-wife, it came to the attention of the police that a mutual friend had had an encounter with Bill Meese where he had offered to kill her boyfriend.
Bill had told her that he would commit this murder for her for $500.
I mean, it was just incredible It was disturbing.
Was Bill some kind of twisted serial murderer? Police decide to move before he can strike once more.
We initiated this investigation and contacted that lady that Bill had approached.
She agreed to wear a recording device, speak with Bill Meese. He was provided a certain sum of money as a down payment, and the police then arrested him for offering to kill this mutual friend's boyfriend.
With Bill in jail, police question him about the Wellnitz triple homicide.
There was no statements made about the Wellnitz murder that he was willing to make at that time.
When we interviewed him there, I mean, we did not get a confession from him. He denied it at that point. Even though we knew that we were on the right track, it still takes evidence to put this together.
As detectives work on building their case with Bill still in custody, news spreads quickly about his arrest and possible involvement in the shooting of Joe, Beth, and Dennis.
When I first heard about Bill being a suspect, it sent shivers up my spine because I immediately am flooded with the memories of being in junior high with Bill and having very, very strange interactions with him. I was 13, 14 years old. He at one point stabbed me in the leg with a pencil. He had been open about talking about murder and proceeded to threaten me that if I said anything about it, that he'd kill me and my family. I hadn't seen my dad in years when I went to school with Bill. I don't know how they knew each other.
One question remains for police. If Bill murdered the Wellnitzes, what was his motive? Detectives learn another piece of shocking information when Regina tells them Bill might have pulled the trigger, but someone else masterminded the killings.
She did share with us that Meg had been involved in the planning of this murder and that she had wanted it done. Certainly that was shocking to everybody. She said that Meg had ridden with Bill Meese from Lexington down to Columbia late night, early morning when these murders occurred.
Meg was a big part of the planning and execution of the plan at her parents' house. What we also learned is that they had been planning this 3 months prior to the murders before they did it. We believed at this time that Meg and Bill Meese were the ones responsible for the murders. We had ruled out Regina and Randy Appleton at this time. It was a bombshell for us to learn that information. I couldn't believe it. Totally unexpected.
10 years after Joe, Beth, and Dennis Wellnitz were shot in cold blood, police now believe Meg Wellnitz wanted her parents dead and asked her friend Bill Meese to kill them.
Based upon my prior history with Meg Wellnitz, I would have never dreamed that she would have been involved in that murder of her parents and sibling. She had become that type of person, not the one that I knew from before. And now all of a sudden I see her in a completely different light when she has no compassion for life.
Before they can lay charges, detectives need hard evidence against Meg and Bill.
One of the things that we learned during the investigation, they had purchased a 9mm high-power Browning automatic. We knew they had done that. They used a false ID and they used it to make the purchase of the gun. We were able to learn that through a report from ATF, and we actually identified who sold that gun to them, and that the person that sold it to them actually identified Meg and Bill as being the ones that came in.
On February 27, 2003, detectives finally have the evidence they need.
This case was presented to an Adair County grand jury, and the grand jury indicted both Meg Wellnitz and Bill Meese.
Meg is arrested at her home in Lexington, but refuses to speak to police. Bill, who is serving a 12-year sentence for the murder for hire plot, is ready to talk.
During his statement, he certainly indicated to us Meg Wellnitz was involved in the planning. This was done at her urging. This was her idea, and that she wanted it done.
We agreed that she wanted to have her parents killed. She claimed the estate was worth $1 million. She would give me 10% of that estate in exchange for killing her parents.
We had the motivation being money. What we learned was that Meg and Bill drove from Lexington that morning down to Columbia, and that Meg gave Bill the key to the front door. She stays in the car. She does not go in the house.
I walked through the house to the back room. Joe came out of the back room. I engaged him, fired on him. He came toward me and I continued firing. He fell. I went upstairs into the hall. Elizabeth was standing next to her bed. I engaged and fired on her. She fell. I came back down the hall. I entered Dennis's grave. He was sitting on his bed. I engaged him. I emptied the magazine of weapons. He was still sitting up at that time. He went down the floor, got on the floor, and I shot him. I then went into the back bedroom and into the closet and got the firebox, took the box down in the car, took off the clothes I was wearing. I put all of those items as well as the firearm and 3 magazines in a black plastic trash bag. I put the black trash bag in the trash container and drove back to Lexington. We got back to Lexington about 6:30 or 7:30.
It truly was a chilling account of just how cold-hearted he was, not only in doing it, but in talking about it.
Police confront Meg with Bill's confession.
She agreed to then give a statement. When we met with Meg, my observation and my perception of her demeanor and her statements to us certainly was not one of any remorse. It was a matter-of-fact description of what she had done some years prior in having her family killed.
I don't think I could have ever thought of Meg committing a murder or being a part of a murder plan. I know that life insurance might seem like a lot of money, but when you put that cost on lives, it's nothing. Like it's unfathomable to think that she considered their lives that invaluable.
Bill Meese was convicted by a jury of 3 counts of murder, robbery, and burglary, and he was sentenced to death. Meg Wellnitz was convicted of complicity to 3 counts of murder, complicity to robbery, and complicity to burglary, and she received a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole for at least 25 years.
It's very disturbing to know that this little sweet girl that I remember has been the one that actually played such a big role in this murder. Meg orchestrated one of the most horrendous crimes that you could imagine, killing your mom and dad and also your brother.
I do not think that Meg receiving 25 years was a just sentence. I think she was as guilty as Bill Meese, and I think she should have been given the same type of sentence as Bill Meese, death.
For their daughter to have been the killer was about the most unexpected thing. It was such a shock to try to wrap your head around how could a daughter carry out or be the mastermind. It does not get any more heartless than that, and it does not get any more sickening than that. She didn't deserve to ever be free again.
In 2014, having served 8 years of her life sentence, Meg is found dead in her cell of an apparent suicide.
I certainly could never have imagined that things would have turned out this way. I just feel sad that Joe wasn't able to live out his life the way that he deserved to and continue to give back to the community that he was a part of and
Is it the building that's on fire?
It is, yeah.
It is, okay then.
I got out, I managed to get in.
Right then. It's okay, is everybody out of the building?
No, there's still my partner in.
Right, is he able to get out of the building?
No, because there's fires near the door.
When the call came in, it seemed an unlikely town and an unlikely venue for this sort of thing to happen at a joinery shop after tea when you wouldn't expect people to be working. Things just didn't seem quite right.
Everybody was really quite worried. You know, it could have been the person that you walked past in the street, it could have been anybody.
I don't know how anybody could live with it, knowing that they burnt somebody alive.
Everybody was so shocked and everybody was locking up more and feeling a bit worried about it all because nothing like this had ever happened in the village.
A few miles from the bustling seaside resort of Skegness sits the small, picturesque market town of Burgh-le-Marsh, affectionately known by its residents as the Village.
Everybody here calls it a village because we feel like village people. We're so connected and so we help one another.
Burgh-le-Marsh is a typical Lincolnshire village on the edge of the Lincolnshire Wolds, famous for its windmill, where people are hard-working and just get on with their lives.
I've had a salon in Burgh-le-Marsh for 14, 15 years and it's a lovely, quiet village where everybody knows everybody. Everybody gets on with everybody and my clients are lovely.
But the peaceful tranquility of the village is about to go up in flames.
We've just gone up to the workshop to pick some things out.
Yeah.
And somebody came up with us behind.
Yeah.
And they attacked us and set fire to the place.
The workshop on fire belongs to well-known local couple David Twigg and Julie Dixon, who own a joinery business next to their home. As the emergency call comes in, Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue Station Commander Gary Milson is immediately dispatched to the scene.
Once I received the call, I'd be straight into my car and making headway down to Burgh-le-Marsh. It's only a few miles down the road. There's not a lot of time to mull over things and get other information in. The information that was relayed to me at that point was that two men dressed in black and wearing balaclavas had accosted David Twigg and his partner. They'd locked David into the storeroom and then proceeded to pour petrol into the foyer of the building and lit it before fleeing the scene. As I approached the premise, there was a white picket fence surrounding it. It seemed quite surreal, the appliances at the bottom with the lights on. As I walked past that towards the entrance where the activity was taking place, the incident commander gave me a quick brief and said that there was very little fire and the fire was out, and they was now trying to locate David Twigg, who they'd been informed was locked in a room inside the building.
With the blaze having been brought under control and extinguished, Gary and his team desperately try to locate David Twigg.
The workshops were an old railway buildings. They were long and thin, and at the end there was a small area with a kitchen, a storeroom and a toilet and a small foyer that linked these all together. And they were all involved in the fire. They was all black and heated and sooty, but they were all empty apart from the storeroom door that was locked. There was no keys present. The decision was made that the wall might be easier to break through than the door, and a hole was made in the wall, and we could see that there was somebody who appeared to be on the knees facing the door. We tried to rouse them through shouting and speaking to them, but there was no response.
With David not responding, the urgency to reach him grows and the fire crew break deeper into the wall, releasing the door.
As the door opened, David Twigg fell forward into our arms and forward onto the floor. The crews immediately turned him over and began resuscitation. We had an ambulance already in attendance and the paramedics were very quickly there, and we assisted the paramedics in placing him into the ambulance where they could work on him further.
In the back of the ambulance, paramedics battle to resuscitate David Twigg.
The time frame from the call to us getting David out of the cupboard may have been around about 10 to 15 minutes, and then we worked on him for probably another 15, 20 minutes after that. before the paramedics decided to call time and pronounce him dead.
With David dead, the situation immediately changes, and a murder investigation is launched.
The first information I got was that there'd been a fire at a business premises near Skegness in Lincolnshire, of course, and that 2 men had been involved. They'd made off, where they hadn't been found at the moment. A man had tragically died, believed to be the owner of the business, and his partner, who worked with him, a lady, had been quite badly injured in the incident. She was being taken to hospital to be treated, and officers were at the scene. So lots of things going through your mind, but at no stage anything other than, this is a murder case. It's tragic. David Twigg has died, and we need to find these 2 people as soon as possible.
With fire crews, police and paramedics at the scene, it isn't long before news of the tragedy spreads around the town.
It was a big event for Lincolnshire. A robbery homicide in a small village like Borough-le-Marsh is something that had never happened before in my 25 years covering the area, and it may well never happen again.
Rumours I heard was they was looking for 2 men, and my house faces a back field, and of course the drones was going over there. There was quite some noise, and I couldn't believe it actually.
The whole village were stunned that something could have happened on the doorsteps.
It was big news, and everybody was really quite worried that whoever did it could have been out there and they could have been next. You just don't know.
There was a lot of anxiety in the community. Borough-le-Marsh is a long way from the nearest police station, a long way sometimes from the nearest police officer, and local people were obviously very concerned that they may be the victim of a similar burglary.
In the Lincolnshire town of Borough-le-Marsh, police have launched a murder investigation after local joiner David Twigg was pronounced dead following a fire at his workshop. His partner, Julie Dixon, had managed to escape and call 999, reporting that masked intruders had broken in, locked David in the storeroom, and set the place on fire.
The impact on the local community after this happened was immense. That's the only way I can describe it. I was clearly getting phone calls. The local community officers were being stopped in the street. People were going to the police station. There was a kind of sense of not just why has this happened, but who's responsible, and just as importantly, is it going to happen again? Is somebody else going to be, the target of these 2 individuals? And nobody could think of a reason why David and Julie would be targeted.
David Twigg was an only son. He grew up in the area. His parents remained in the area. He was a master joiner, very popular and a hard-working man in the local area. He was also a very big man, well over 6 feet tall and 19 stone, but he was a presence in the community.
David met Julie in 1996 when she was going through a divorce. The pair quickly moved in together.
They remained together for 15 years. They came across as a typical middle-aged couple. In Borough-le-Marsh, David and Julie were seen as a team. David was the carpenter, the joiner at the business, and Julie was doing the finance and the accounts for the business.
Outside of joinery, David soon discovered a new hobby, stock car racing, which opened up a whole new social circle for him and Julie, with professional racer John Mickle and his wife Lisa.
So from that very first race meeting, really kind of just kicked it off. We enjoyed each other's company. They wanted to come to every single race meeting. They wanted to be involved.
And David soon found a way to combine work with his newfound love when he set up a sideline alongside his joinery company.
As David's business grew, he was quite happy to sponsor the motor racing team. That was one of his passions, and so they undertook that deal, which was several £1,000s.
Julie and David were keen to promote this new kitchen bits and bobs business, which is an online business that they were trying to get off the ground. I think they felt that probably some branding on the race cars, and then obviously we can promote it through social media as well.
The sponsorship proved very successful. David particularly got on very well with the racing team, and they were invited over to America to watch the team racing, and all seemed well. It was a very happy relationship, and he got on very well with them.
I think from the beam on his face when we first, agreed at Liddon Hill, he just seemed incredibly proud. He seemed very smiley. You could tell he was passionate about his business, and this was something that he felt was going to enhance the people that would see his work.
The friendship between the two couples started to grow stronger.
I think from the very first time we met them, I really, really liked what they brought to the team, and, the energy, and we call it a race family, and it just felt like they were going to become part of our race family. Julie wanted to be hands-on with me in the kitchen, while David was very quick to throw himself into the deep end with John on the mechanic side as well. They just got stuck in. It wasn't just about the racing anymore. They started to get quite involved. She wanted to be involved in the family life that we had as well. She would buy presents for my children, who were aged 4 and 7 then. They looked fondly upon her and David as well. So they became family friends.
And it was Lisa Julie turned to in the aftermath of the tragedy of David's death.
The very first time I heard about David was on Monday morning. I had a phone call somewhere between 7 and 7:30 in the morning from Julie. She basically was hysterical. She was shouting down the phone, "He's dead, he's dead." And I really didn't have a clue what she was even talking about. I didn't know who's dead. I said, "Julie, who's dead?" She said, David's dead. And I then tried to get some more information. What's happened? She said, a fire. So none of her sentences were very long. It was just words being thrown out at me. I said, a fire? What? There's a house fire? She said, no, workshop, fire, masked men, attacked. From that phone call, I immediately knew I had to go and visit her straight away. I knew it would be a long journey up to Lincolnshire, probably 4 hours. I just grabbed my purse, my keys, and left. So the 4 hours going there it's a very weird and surreal situation. You keep thinking, has this really happened? Is this some kind of, is this true? Is it real? I just can't get my head around it. It's an awful lot of information, hearing her so upset on the phone. And those words, he's dead, they just kept playing and playing in my head.
When Lisa arrives at Julie's parents' house, she finds Julie in a state of shock.
Julie was sitting and rocking in a chair. I was absolutely taken back when I first saw her because she had burns on her face. She told me that her and David, on the Sunday, had gone down to the yard, which is just a short stroll from the house, to lock up. That's all they were doing. They were going to lock up. She said that she had asked David to go into the storeroom to get a light bulb. And these 2 men wearing balaclavas, dressed in black and hoodies, had come into the barn, had locked David in the cupboard, and then had grabbed her. And that they had tried and forced her towards this circular saw. I asked her how she got away, and she said, I just squirmed out of... She said, lucky I was wearing a hoodie. I squirmed out of it and ran. She said she ran out of the door, she ran across the field, and then I think after a short space of time, she turned round to look back to see that these intruders were also leaving the premises and that they'd shut the door behind them. She was then concerned about David, so she went back to the barn. And when she opened the door, suddenly the combustion, the flames, that's what had caused the burns to her face.
While Lisa consoles her heartbroken friend, police turn up to interview Julie as a key witness to the crime.
She was only able to give some basic details. We didn't want to push too hard, of course. She's a victim, she's lost David in the most awful circumstances. Clearly the 999 call provided us with a little bit of information, which was helpful, but we wanted to try and dig deeper if we could, so we had to ask those difficult questions as early as possible. She was interviewed by specially trained officers, but sometimes it just wasn't possible to continue with interviews because Julie wasn't in a emotionally fit state to carry on at that point. So we had to do lots of short sections rather than a really long and draining and demanding interview.
With little information gleaned from Julie and unease growing among the locals, police turned to the public for help.
In the hours that followed, Lincolnshire Police made appeals for the intruders and did reveal that a 999 call had been made by Julie Dixon and gave the description of these two masked men who had been to the workshop, and that Julie had managed to push one of them away and escape, and then rang the fire brigade on 999.
I remember holding more than one press conference, which wasn't just local and regional, it was national as well, because this was big news in terms of what had happened and where it had happened and the type of community that it was affecting.
As Lincolnshire Police continued to make these appeals, we would take that information and circulate it amongst the various radio stations, local newspapers, daily newspapers in Lincolnshire. And the police were obviously very anxious to get that message out as wide as possible.
With Lincolnshire Police desperately trying to piece together the events of the night and establish the identity of the masked men, Fire Commander Gary Milson scours the crime scene for clues.
Once the fire's been extinguished, we then start on the scene preservation side of it. And as we withdraw from the building, we're trying to make sure that anything that has been removed out of the building is logged or is placed back into the building with care, so that should we need to, we can rebuild that picture, that jigsaw puzzle, to help us find out how the fire started.
I've dealt with quite a few fires, and unfortunately fatal fires as well, and murder cases, and it's probably one of the most challenging cases that you have to deal with, because by its very nature fire destroys, and fire destroys evidence, not just the fire itself but the water that's used.
Having established petrol was used as the accelerant, Senior Investigating Officer Stuart Gibbon begins trying to make sense of the scene.
All police officers and detectives are constantly reminded about how important the golden hour is. It's a time where you can lose evidence, but if you get it right and you gather the evidence and you secure and preserve that evidence, it can have a positive impact on the rest of the investigation. The golden hour in this particular investigation was kind of twofold. One was about securing the workshop to make sure that we could get access to it and that nobody else used it, and it could be forensically examined over a period of days, which it was. Also, from a financial point of view, it wasn't going to be a kind of random attack. That is something that I almost eliminated from a very early stage, simply because of where it is. So was it a customer that had been in before? And then you start to think about the reasons why. Is it financial? Is it a robbery or a burglary that's gone wrong? Did David owe somebody some money and they were trying to recover the money? So we drafted in a financial investigator working with the police, and he was starting to look at the actual basics of the business, how it was doing financially, what was going on.
Could David have been targeted for money? Was it a revenge attack for a business deal gone wrong? Or something closer to home?
So Julie did actually send me a few messages, and she called me quite distressed, probably a couple of weeks before David was killed. She did say that her telephone had been cut off, but then was restored again. She said that her electricity had been cut off, but restored again. She felt that someone was messing around with them.
Aware that this information could be key to the investigation, Lisa contacts the police.
So we had what are known as a POLSA team, police search advisor team, specialist search officers that did a kind of fingertip search in the parameters around the building. And actually they found something which appeared quite significant. Deposited in some bushes on a neighbouring piece of land next to the joinery workshop, they found some keys, and we were able to establish at a slightly later point that one of those keys fitted the storeroom that David had been locked inside. So this was quite a significant find for us. Obviously those items were forensically examined, they didn't yield any evidence, but the finding of those keys supported at that point the account that Julie Dixon had given, because they were found in the direction that the two offenders were alleged to have gone off in.
Further inquiries begin to yield some surprising discoveries.
I think the first kind of breakthrough in terms of new information for the investigation wasn't, surprisingly, to do with the two offenders. It was to do with the financial affairs, if you like. We'd been led to believe by the inquiries that we conducted that the business was in a good place financially, that David was doing well, and that the accounts were healthy. In actual fact, when we had a financial investigator start to look more closely at the accounts and the business, the opposite was true. They were in dire financial straits, on the verge, if not already, bankrupt, and there was some serious financial issues.
Having been unaware of the financial issues at David's business, further inquiries throw up more concerns.
The post that was going to the business was supposed to be going to David Twigg Joinery, was actually had been redirected to this garage, and that was quite a big point for us as well, because then that begs the question, well, why is the post being redirected, who's redirecting it, and what lies behind that?
In Lincolnshire, the investigation into the murder of David Twigg has thrown up some suspicious activity around his business.
It soon became clear that both the workshop and the bungalow where they lived had been remortgaged.
Finances was becoming a little bit more of a priority line of inquiry, and we needed also to know why the post was being redirected to another address. We were still keeping an open mind. Obviously, we were still trying to establish these two master offenders, who they were, where they were, why they'd done what they did. But also these other things were starting to kind of build up in terms of the finances, first and foremost. Very, very different to how we'd initially thought they were.
While the investigation homes in on David's financial affairs and whether his death could be linked to a business deal, 2 months after his murder, David's body is released so he can finally be laid to rest. Friend Lisa accompanies David's partner Julie to the funeral.
That was a huge, big turning point for us. Suddenly my gut feeling started to take over. The funeral, she acted very strange for someone that was basically saying the last goodbye to a partner. She would crack jokes, and quite inappropriate jokes, acting slightly inappropriately towards people. She was laughing very, very loud. Then suddenly she'd be upset. It just seemed really irrational. And I felt uncomfortable.
But it isn't just friends who have their concerns. Having uncovered some financial irregularities surrounding David and Julie's business, Lincolnshire police have more questions.
Yeah, we were looking for answers to these questions, and the only person that really could probably provide them was Julie Dixon. I was conscious that we were asking her a lot of questions and being quite direct with her, when actually, on the face of it, she was a victim of the most awful circumstances. But we had to ask those questions. We weren't always given the answers that we were looking for.
As well as the finances, police inquiries with David's creditors flag up something else.
All the inquiries that we carried out with the businesses and the authorities that were dealing with this financial debt, nobody had ever spoken personally or otherwise with David Twigg. Every kind of communication, be it on the telephone, email, that sort of thing, was with Julie Dixon. And what we also uncovered, which was really quite concerning, was that people were being told by Julie that David was terminally ill, that he was abroad on holiday, that he was really unable to take any calls for various different reasons. And this concerned us because we couldn't corroborate this in any way.
Having also discovered the post addressed to David's business was being redirected to a local garage, Stuart and his team trawl through the garage's CCTV, hoping it will reveal who is behind the redirection. Instead, they find another clue.
And when we examined that CCTV, we found that Julie had driven there in a vehicle on the morning of the murder and had filled up petrol cans with petrol at the location. And when we did challenge her with finding that information in the CCTV footage, she told us, yes, I did go to the garage that morning. We were doing some gardening and I needed to get some petrol to fill the lawnmower up. We established also that Julie had a BlackBerry-type mobile phone, and as part of a murder investigation you're always looking at mobile phone data because it can tell you a lot of things, and we couldn't get into it. So clearly we asked Julie on more than one occasion, could you please help us and tell us what the PIN number is so we can access this device? She was unable to do so. She said that she'd forgotten, she couldn't remember it. Clearly she had been using it very recently and on the day of the murder. We had evidence of that. If nobody else uses it and nobody else has changed the PIN or password, then she must know that number or that code. What's in that BlackBerry? Why won't she tell us the PIN number? We really desperately needed to get to the bottom of what had happened, and this was the point where the investigation focus really changed.
As the months tick by, friends of Julie also start to have their doubts as to what really occurred that fateful night.
One race meeting that I remember very, very clearly was the last race meeting that she's ever come to. When we arrived there was a police car there. She started screaming and hitting things, shouting at the top of her voice, making some very loud noises. And I just said, Julie, talk to me. What's wrong? Why are you upset? She sat, she rocked, she cried. She rocked, she cried. And then she started saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. And I just said, what are you sorry for? Tell me what you're sorry for. She rocked, she cried, I'm sorry. And it was like a repeated process. She said nothing else, she did nothing else.
While Julie spends a weekend away with friends, back at the investigation, forensic evidence starts to build up.
Now, the account Julie gave was that the two men had come in, there'd been a tussle, she'd managed to get out of the place, and she'd gone to ring 999, and then she'd noticed them running out, the two offenders, and they ran off round the back, and she went back in to try and rescue David or find him, and as she opened the door, there was a flashback, and she was hit with the fumes from the fire and the explosion, and that was how she got the injuries. Actually, forensic evidence would say otherwise, and would indicate that it was what's known as a vapour cloud.
When the petrol would be originally poured into the foyer and lit, as the petrol's ignited, the vapour cloud would ignite first, and anybody in that vicinity would get caught in that vapour cloud, and depending on the amount of vapour and the intensity of it, they may just get slight singeing and flash burns, or they could indeed get quite badly burnt. That seemed to be fitting more with the burns to Julie Dixon than rather what she was telling us, that she would open the door and it flared up. In fact, we considered it quite unlikely that she had opened the door and the petrol had flared up like that. Once it's lit, it's done that initial flare up, and it's unlikely that would happen again. There was a petrol can behind the door. Had she have opened the door right at the start of the fire, she would have moved the petrol can, so that evidence didn't add up.
We also recovered from a forensic examination of the bungalow some very small hairs in the bathroom sink. Now again, on the surface, first viewing, not particularly relevant, but when we have those sent off to be forensically examined and we find out that they belong to Julie Dixon, those hairs, again, not particularly relevant, it's her bathroom, she uses the bathroom, there are going to be hairs. They were identified as eyelash or eyebrow hairs, but they were singed, they were burned. That put a kind of different slant on it as well.
Finding burned eyebrow hairs revealed Julie had gone into the bathroom after the fire had started, knowing full well her partner was trapped inside a burning building, something which raises suspicion among the police. Not only that, but the fire investigators believe Julie could only have received her injuries if she'd been inside the building when the fire started.
Julie Dixon had given various different accounts. She'd given us very little information. The more we tried to put to her by way of questions, the more withdrawn she'd become at that point, and actually became quite defensive at various times as well. And it was at that point that I made the decision, based on all the anomalies and the significant findings, she was going to be arrested on suspicion of the murder of her partner, David.
Three months after David's death, and news of Julie's arrest soon spreads around her hometown.
Obviously, there had been a lot of anxiety and fright in the community about intruders being at large. So in some ways, the arrest of Julie put that to bed. But equally, there was also some anger that obviously they'd spent 3 months believing Julie's story.
There was a lot of upset people. She had upset a lot of people because she befriended, well, she was everybody's friend. She was a very likeable person. And yeah, it was a big shock to everybody.
Julie Dixon is brought into the police station for formal questioning, this time as a suspect, not as a witness.
I was prepared, I thought, for most things to come from that interview, including a no-comment interview, which is quite common. So we'd gathered together as a group, the interviewing officers, the SIO, the interview coordinator, to discuss what could happen. But what actually did happen, I think it's fair to say, threw us all at that point. She provided a prepared statement, and what it said in a nutshell was that this whole situation had been a suicide pact. So what she said was that both her and David had wanted to die due to the dire financial circumstances around the business and personal issues, and that they were preparing to do just that, but that when the crunch came to lighting the petrol and setting the fire, she panicked and ran out of the building, leaving David behind.
In Lincolnshire, police are questioning David Twigg's partner on suspicion of his murder.
My initial thoughts were that if Julie was prepared to lie about two masked raiders and invent a story around what had actually happened, then what else had she lied about?
In interview, Julie claims the fire was a joint suicide pact, but that she had panicked and fled. So police need to establish if there is any truth in her account.
Let's go back and speak to friends and family. What sort of state of mind was David in? And actually, fairly quickly, it was established that he was in a good state of mind. He had no idea, we think, that the business was in such dire straits. He had no reason to die.
There's no way that David in his right mind would do a suicide pact, because he loved life too much and he was enjoying it too much. You know, the weeks before he got killed, he was down with us, enjoying it, planning the next year, the next trips, where we were going. He would never had that in his back of his mind. So we knew for ourselves then that she was bonkers and she had done it, and she was now trying to get herself out of a murder.
Suddenly, here we are. It's now a suicide pact. And who has a suicide pact but's locked behind a door that they don't have the key to, so they couldn't even change their mind if they wanted to? Poor David died on his hands and knees in a praying position, leaning against a door that was locked from the outside. That's not a suicide pact.
With time running out to hold Julie Dixon without charge, Senior Investigating Officer Stuart Gibbon consults with the Crown Prosecution Service.
So we clearly were very concerned about this prepared statement and just felt that it was probably another way of shifting focus. You know, we've had the masked offenders, they no longer exist now, so now we're going to go down the suicide pact, which is, interestingly enough, is a partial defence to murder, and if found to be true, could result in a conviction for manslaughter rather than murder. So that kind of made sense at that point. We had CPS working with us, so we could talk to them about the content of that prepared statement. They were already fully au fait with the evidence that we gathered that far. And the CPS lawyer was happy at that point that there was sufficient evidence to provide a realistic prospect for conviction. So the decision was made to charge Julie Dixon with murdering her partner David Twigg.
With Dixon charged with murder, police and CPS prepare for trial, and part of that means trying to establish a motive. Why would Julie want David dead?
The main strands of evidence, really, I mean, there were quite a few bits of circumstantial as well, the petrol and the redirection of the post, but the main ones were really the finances. You know, we found out that they were in dire straits. What I think is that it was getting to the point where a warrant was issued for non-payment of fines. The bailiffs were going to turn up at the workshop at some point. That is the stage where David would become aware of the scale of this debt, in fact the debt existed at all maybe, and Julie Dixon could then hold that back no longer. That was where it was all going to come to a head.
As well as discovering the couple were in serious financial trouble, police now had CCTV proving Julie purchased petrol on the day of the murder. But it's forensic evidence of a computer found in the couple's workshop, which really helps build the case for the prosecution.
We'd heard stories that she'd been Googling stuff on a laptop, claiming that David had been Googling stuff. How do you commit suicide with it being undetected?
She was Googling on her laptop how to poison someone with cakes and how to get away with murder.
As the trial approaches, Julie Dixon changes her story yet again.
Things kind of changed a little bit again when Julie Dixon then started to say that it wasn't a suicide pact. Actually, David did want to die, and she was just trying to help him along, basically. So she's trying to remove herself even further from any kind of blame whatsoever. You know, it was David's idea. David wanted to do it. I just kind of helped him. Things had changed hugely since the first 999 call to the emergency services, but we felt we had a strong case. On the second day of that hearing, the not guilty plea, which had been entered initially by Julie Dixon, changed to a guilty plea, but she still maintained at that point that this had been all about David wanting to die. That's what the defence was putting forward, whereas our defence was cold-blooded, premeditated, pre-planned murder.
With Julie's shocking confession, the trial is halted.
Once Julie Dixon had admitted her guilt and pleaded guilty to David's murder, the role of the jury was no longer needed, but then falls to the judge to decide on what basis he believes her plea and on what basis the killing was carried out. So this is what is called a Newton hearing, and the judge hears evidence from all the parties in the case, and it's in the judge's role to decide how the murder was carried out effectively.
The prosecution lays out its case to the judge, and Julie's 999 call is played to the court.
The tractors and set fire to the place.
So the place has actually set fire?
Yeah.
Is it the building that's on fire?
It is, yeah.
It is, okay then.
I got out. I managed to get
Right then. It's okay. Is everybody out of the building?
No, there's still my partner in.
The phone call, on the face of it, sounded very genuine. She sounded distraught. She was hysterical. But actually, the first information imparted was more of an account about what they'd been doing, like a rehearsal, rather than just saying, I need help and I need help quickly.
Over 5 days, the court hears how Julie's account changed throughout the investigation. From masked intruders to a joint suicide pact, to her assisting David in his own bid to take his own life.
The defence argued, once Julie Dixon had pleaded guilty, that matters had spiralled out of control and that in some ways this had been an emotional response from Julie Dixon, almost that she had panicked because of the financial difficulties she got into. However, I think from the prosecution's point of view, and certainly from the police point of view, this was a perpetrator who had changed her accounts whenever it had suited her, whenever she had been confronted with new evidence. There was always a line of defence. So it's hard not to see her really as a very skillful and manipulative liar.
Julie Dixon didn't take the stand at all, didn't give evidence, was again very impassive, didn't present any emotion at any stage of the court proceedings, merely sat in the dock and appeared to be listening to the proceedings.
The extent of the couple's financial difficulties is revealed to the judge.
David wouldn't have had a clue about that bankruptcy. He was quite happy going about his everyday business. I think if he had found out that he had been declared bankrupt, he would have been incredibly upset, being such a proud man. So, yeah, she obviously kept that from him. And I can't see that those finances would have been enough for anyone to lose their life over.
At the end of that hearing, Judge Heath had to decide whose account he believed. And he came firmly down on David Twigg's side and said that he in no way believed that David Twigg had wanted to commit suicide. And he described Julie Dixon's account as a pack of lies.
The judge was quite damning in his comments and quite clear that he thought it was a cold-blooded murder and that, you know, she'd been kind of playing the part and it was potentially worthy of an Oscar nomination if it hadn't been so sad and so true.
Julie Dixon is sentenced to life with a minimum of 23 years for the murder of David Twigg. 11 years on, he is still remembered fondly.
No sentence can ever bring back a loved one. It will never be enough, of course, and it will never bring David back. But I just hope it brings some little comfort to the loved ones and those who loved David so much.
It just beggars belief that anyone would do that to another human being, a living person, someone you're supposed to care about, your partner. It's just incredibly difficult to understand how anyone would do that.
I think the harder thing is to wrap your head around is the way she calculated it, how she planned it all. What else was she planning? What else was she thinking? They say it's down to money. We'll never know. Obviously, she don't care about anybody because obviously she did what she did. So no one will ever know what's going through her head.
This investigation and this case impacted hugely on the community and the village of Burla Marsh. You know, people aren't going to forget what happened. It lives with them forever, and whenever the name of the village is sometimes mentioned, people will talk about this case. I know I certainly will never forget it.